Classes in session. And welcome to Unlearn 16 Classes in Session, guys. Today, we are starting a journey, an epic. What's the word I'm looking for? Odyssey, even?
Love that.
I'm just going to pull out Homer right out of the woodwork. And I'm starting it with these two amazing gentlemen right here. We have Stu and Stefan. They are, well, you're Buffy experts is what you are.
Aficionados.
Right? Yes. That's what I heard. I mean, that's
Chosens.
You know, exactly. You're chosen. You're
the chosen ones.
Right? So if you want to give a little bit of background about you, so everybody that's listening can know who you are.
Start with you, Stuart.
Okay, great. We stare at each other.
We're recording.
But I was like waiting for Stefan. I was like, Stefan's going to do it. No, I'll do it. Okay.
Oh, no, you first. You first.
So I'm Stu. I have been a Buffy fan for many a year. I think I started watching when I was 14 years old, 15 years old, 14, 13. It was an age of my life. I collected all of the novels. I read all of the Watcher's guides. I had a shirt.
I love it.
I like nerds picked on me. So yeah. I also knew a girl one time who thought she was a vampire slayer. It was amazing.
In real life?
No, I did. We used to walk around graveyards, but we also thought she was kind of weird.
To be fair, that was me, and how dare you? Like, can you believe?
How dare you out Stefan right now?
She used to walk around the graveyards with a stake.
That's
That's
next level. TikTok right there.
Yeah.
See, because I would never do that because I am very much like, I wonder if there was a version to have like Willow and Faith just be the same person. How could I make that happen? Because that would be my ultimate.
Interesting. I like the marriage.
Just merge the two.
I like it.
I like it. I've always thought, because I'm one of those people who's like, what if I just create a fan fiction where like one guy could be a Slayer, and it was like maybe it's Faith's brother, and she abandons him because she's so afraid of the demons and the vampires, so she disappears. But he also had abilities and had no idea what was going on, so he had to like figure it out himself and find her. Anyway, he ends up in season 7. They have a whole reconciliation, and he fights with the big bads. All I'm saying is that would have been me, and I would have loved it. So I am
Stefan,
a fan.
I feel like it's the archive of our own story. You could start this.
Yeah,
you could write this
I might
fan
want
fiction.
to. I Willow. Like
but that's not the. Okay, we'll get into
chosen one.
We'll get into the gendered and sex. Maybe we'll separate that for another time. But today we're gonna do 7 episodes, right? 7 episodes. Each episode's gonna represent one season.
I love it.
Yes. Okay. I had 7 episodes in today. I was like,
we're gonna do 7 episodes in a row. We are going to sit here until.
Oh my God.
No. I thought you meant like 7 episodes of the season. I was like, but there are 12 episodes, Joe.
Order me sushi. I'm ready. Like, I will wait.
Hunker down. If I could do a live version of this, I would. So we're going to start with season 1, 1997. When I look back at it, just did a little bit of sort of review, and it has really high Rotten Tomato ratings. And I'm like, I don't think these are fair, because I think what's happened here is Buffy fans have gone back and rated it.
Absolutely.
But let's be honest. Season 1 may not be the pinnacle of all that is great of Buffy. So for those who are listening, who are like, I want to try to watch Buffy, and maybe after we talk about it, you're like, yeah, that sounds like my jam. Here's the reality. These 12 episodes aren't the easy. They're not the best. They're just.
I love them. I like 3 of them. Oof. 3 episodes were great.
Quality-wise, also, it's very dark. I find that everything's super dark. You want to watch it in a pitch black room to hopefully see some characters. You know what I mean?
And what's worse... what's worse is when they tried to re-release it. Sorry, Stuart. When they tried to re-release it and they upped the lighting and they completely changed it, they ruined the show because they were putting it widescreen. They were brightening it so it didn't look like it was evening. Like she was walking in the cemetery in the middle of the day with cameramen on the side.
It is what it is. You can't mess around with it now.
But what I love is a stylistic version of like the stylistic choices in this show where the first season was very dark. Like it was like they lit one candle 3 towns over and just filmed from there. It was everything was harsh white lighting, like
Yeah.
above their heads,
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
terrible
fluorescence.
hair, and a lot of really powdered blue makeup.
Well, it was
That was like,
97,
but
Stu.
nothing
97.
looks good, Joe, with white light and a powdered blue eye.
Also,
You
everyone's
know what?
wearing powdered blue. Did you notice that in episode 1? Everyone's wearing
It's that
blue, like light
Buffy
blue.
jacket I want. Yeah.
Yeah.
I still want that jacket. But you know
Mm.
what's it's interesting because even with okay, so let's assume in season 1 there wasn't a lot of money, there wasn't a lot of production value. All
Mm-mm.
of that
There
stuff
wasn't.
would have the budget would have been low. What I'm
Yeah,
still impressed with though, still to this day, was the vampire faces.
Yeah.
Still to
yes.
this day, they held up, and I don't know who made the choice. I think, well, I've heard who made the choice. The whole exploding vampire was freaking genius. That was genius.
At the time, yeah, it was next level. It
Really
was. It
easy
was.
special effect that got rid of the body. Stuart's just
Well, because
banging crap.
well, because if you think about it, it was a show that was taking over mid-season for like a canceled series on the
Yeah.
WB, and the WB was brand new to the scene at the time. And
Yeah.
so, what they also did was this was a new show with a new vernacular that had actors that you didn't really know about, and then it had this storyline of it's not 90210, it's not Saved by the Bell. It has elements of the two, but it's
Mhm.
focusing on like the supernatural, which at the time, and I could be wrong, wasn't something we really saw, especially in a
No.
brand new series. And so I think one of the reasons that they got a season 2 so quickly, because there was only 3 months between the last episode of season 1 and the first episode of season 2, is because they're like, we have something here, just keep going, keep going.
Yeah.
Because the way he wrote the characters, the scripts are so of the time, but he was literally creating his own like grammar set, his own wording,
Yeah.
his own everything.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And Joss Whedon maybe we're not going to talk about Joss Whedon, but we're going to talk about the
Now
impact he made, I guess.
yeah. Let's talk about him within this because the real people all have their issues. But let's try
Right.
to we'll keep in the fan world of Buffy. Yes,
Mhm.
yes, Stu.
I feel like though, like I think he capitalized on a certain time in the WB and was able
Mhm.
to get this show off the ground really easily because you had Charms, you had Felicity, you had a lot of female-led TV shows.
Was Charm
I
first?
Yeah, did Charm come out first?
I
No.
don't
I thought that was 2000.
know.
Am I
Charmed
wrong?
was after.
no, was it? Was
Charmed.
it? Was it? Was
I
it?
think
I
it was
just think
after.
I think Buffy led the way. I think Buffy was the chosen one, and in every
Buffy led
generation
the
she showed up
way,
first.
I thought it was 97 as well that
and
Charmed came
that's
out.
what I'm. Let me see. No, 98. Charmed.
So like
Oh.
yeah, so when season 1
Buffy.
ended, so Buffy did go first.
Buffy was when anybody talks about vampire anything, you can't talk about Vampire Diaries, Twilight, whatever the
I
other
love Vampire
spin.
Diaries.
Everybody talks about these shows like they're the be all. And I'm like, excuse me, they would have been nothing. They wouldn't even have been a show. There would have been no production
Nothing.
money. There would have been
Nothing.
no option. There would have been nothing for those shows to exist had it not been for Buffy. Now, the funny thing about Buffy is I didn't start watching until later. Why? Because the thing was named Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
It was a really weird name.
I'm like,
Like,
no, I'm not watching it.
Well,
no,
I
you
saw the
shouldn't.
movie back in like 92, I believe it
Oh,
was. And
The
that's the
movie
thing.
was
So I
awful.
remembered the
horrible.
movie, and
Yeah.
thankfully there's very little of the movie within the series, like very few
Yeah.
references. But I do remember, like, I think the reason I started watching the WB show is because I'm like, I remember this movie, and it was one of the very first horror quote movies that I was able to watch as a kid. Like, I picked it up
Right.
myself at the the rental place. I sat down and I watched it. I was terrified because they were scary, even though it was ridiculous. And then I remember thinking, oh, that was campy and fun. I'll try this again. And yeah. Immediately fell in love
Well,
with the show.
Pee Wee Herman scares everybody, but
It
for different.
makes me laugh. Now watching it makes me laugh so hard. His little fake death weird. Ooh, ah, ee. What is happening?
Exactly. And it's funny because and I want to get I want to get everybody's sort of I guess impression of Buffy before we get
Mhm.
into the episodes and everything like that, because the thing about it being called Buffy the Vampire Slayer is ironically what kept me out, but is the symbol of what eventually solidified me as a fan, which
Mhm.
is
Her
so
name?
funny. Yeah, because the point and again, I'm going to say what it means to me, because everybody else sort of flips around whatever it means to them. But this idea, this heightened idea of femininity and the stupid blonde and all of those kind of stereotypes that he flipped and turned on its head, I
Mm-hmm.
think was the genius of the show. The genius of the show was the fact that he took everything that people, even if they didn't agree, if they didn't, let's say, verbalize, you know what I mean? All those blonde jokes, all of those, the damsel in distress crap, all of that, and he just flipped it. But he knew he couldn't do it with a character like Faith. Faith
No.
wasn't flipping anything. You had to do it with Buffy, because Buffy was the pinnacle, was the. So,
Yeah.
Stuart, if you had to, somebody says to you, why should I watch Buffy? You have to sell them on it in you know, 3 minutes. You don't get a
3 minutes.
huge rant. You sell them on it in
Much
three
time.
minutes. How do you sell them on Buffy?
Oh fuck.
I think I would probably say that it's a character-driven story where a normal person develops superpowers and is forced to sort of give up her social life, her life to save the world, and along with that, along with her kind of rebuilding her life, she comes in contact with a bunch of people who are like-minded and form a family and really help her survive against all odds. And I think that it's a really good allegory for the kind of the monsters we deal with in our everyday lives, whether it be abusive relationships or homophobia, bullying. All of these things are threaded through with the kind of monster of the week
Mhm.
uh,
Absolutely. Yeah.
way of storytelling. But
Mhm.
I really do think that at the root of the whole thing, it's about relationships, and it's Buffy's relationship with her powers versus a relationship with um, this destiny that she has, and then everyone else's relationships with Buffy and sort of how they are stretched and pulled, because the people that came into her life in high school are not the same people that we sort of see at the end of the
Oh, for
series.
sure. Yeah.
Vastly different. Um, and I think that those people would have not been able to develop the way they did without meeting her. And I don't necessarily think it came with a bunch of really fantastic things at all times. I think they suffered a lot. And I think that these people gave up a lot as well. Like, I think you have to look at it from, because I think people see like Willow, for example, and wow, she became a witch and she's super powerful. She's all godlike, but also she gave up a lot
Yeah.
to become that. She gave up um a life, the future that she had, the kind of and I think it
Season
rerouted
one.
her.
Hmm.
I know, I'm just saying, like, I'm just talking with the elevator pitch of the show.
Yeah.
Even in season one, she gave up a lot. Even in season one, like Willow, Xander, their best friend dies. So they've given up a
Spoiler
relationship.
alert.
Listen,
Stephanie,
1997.
what would make you happy here? How can I talk about the show to your
Yeah,
specifications?
yeah, I can't.
Jesus.
There might be some
Anything else?
spoilers.
God, calm down, Nancy Reagan. Fuck.
Throat goat.
I just say no.
All right,
Um,
Steph,
yeah.
you have your 2 minute, 3 minutes,
Okay.
elevator pitch. What do you say?
Okay. I'd walk up to anyone and say, "Hey, do you like really strong women and also like a supernatural element? You're gonna love Vampire Diaries. But if you want to watch something even better, if you want to actually see where that came from, you're gonna go right back. You're gonna go all the way back, and you're gonna discard Charmed because nobody cares about Charmed. How dare they? And you're gonna go right back. I wanted to get that response. Anyway, we're gonna go all the way back. We're gonna go back to the
I love you,
late
Alyssa Milano, if
90s.
you're listening right now.
I love you, Holly Marie Coombs. God. And Shannon Doherty, you monster.
Like, do you want to go back into a life where, like, hey, I also want to remember what it was like to be in high school, but also there's a supernatural element? Let's bring you some vampires. Let's bring you some kick-ass music. Let's fucking do this. Like, because you know what? I'm actually doing this to my partner right now. I'm like, we're watching season 1. You're starting today. And he
Good for
did.
you.
If not, his response was, you told me to always be honest with you, right? I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
And he said, if I didn't have the nostalgia factor that you do, I watched the first episode, I'm like, uh-huh. But he's like, but I watched the second episode and it really brought me in. You
Oh,
just,
nice.
yeah, you just have
Have
to
to
like,
say.
it's camp. It's a cultural phenomenon. It's a camp classic. It is the reason these other shows exist. You cannot go wrong. And also it's spun off so many different arcs and characters and comics and sideshows and hopefully another rebirth soon and all these things that are just so amazing. And it was the first time we saw a real LGBTQ relationship on mainstream TV. It was,
Huge.
and it's we saw grief, we saw death, we saw like a real things happening, but they just added a bit of flair to it. And honestly, like this is the show to watch if you want to just get a couple friends, fire up that popcorn, get a nice like comfy comforter, and just watch TV for like the next 6 years. I'm going to keep you there. I'm going to keep you there. I'm just going to keep you in there. 6 years.
Seasons?
Yeah, Mrs. Faversham. She's just waiting for Dent.
7 years is too much.
Yeah. No, yeah, we're going to stop at 6, apparently.
Yeah, we're stopping at season 6.
It's funny because I think when you guys talk about it, it's interesting because you talk about the characters developing, and I've always thought of Buffy in a sense of becoming. I've never so my whole structure about Buffy, and it kind of got finalized sort of in season 7 when she even talks about it. She talks about the whole cookie dough thing. We'll get to that. But this idea that these characters, and I believe this of people, I truly do. I think your life is just, if you do it and you do it right, and you do it as best you can, as best as anybody can, but you gradually get to who you've always been, but had to fight your way to get to.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that about all the Buffy characters. They go through, and this is what's brilliant about it being in high school, because high school are those formative years. They truly are. I think we discard them as being not important and whatever, but there's reason why you are who you are when you leave high school. Different things may happen, but somehow that essence of who you are gets pushed through, and all these big things happen then. And I really believe that they're all becoming. And when I think about the feminist themes of the show, it's funny because the one big difference between Buffy and every other show I've ever seen, be it feminist or otherwise, or male driven, it doesn't matter, is this notion that the superhero saves the day, that person. Mm-hmm. But in Buffy, it's not. It's everybody. They make a very clear point.
Everyone's needed.
Season 1. Buffy doesn't make it out unless who was there? Not somebody with superpowers, not somebody with anything extra. If Xander hadn't been there in that last episode, we don't have
we don't have season 2.
We don't have a season 2. The
look on Stuart's face.
Angel didn't have the breath. That would have been that.
That
would have been that.
Yeah,
it's true. It's. I love the fact that. But you're right, though. It's like the fact that it's all through high school, because I was in, I think, late grade school into early high school, and high school's scary. High school's full of problems and bullies and new emotions and learning new things, and it's a scary time because you have to like come into your own, but also navigate this life that you're just being in, and having a show, watching a show that's having them deal with sort of the same problems that you are, friendships and bullying and meeting people and anxieties and tests. And then adding that supernatural, it made it lighter. It made you feel like, oh, this can be like funny or a joke because it's Buffy. Like I can relate to this because I'm feeling half of it and I know that it's fake, but I can be in the moment and I can enjoy it.
It's interesting you said that because it does make everything appear, because it's such a huge she's fighting a monster, therefore her history test doesn't really mean much. But it's interesting because like that loss or that fight was to kind of like parallel that stress of a history test. And we have these kind of like really interesting storylines that serve as that kind of allegorical the plot device. But I really I find this season campy because there's a consistent storyline, but there's so many standalone episodes.
They're all
Mhm.
all of them pretty much.
Yeah.
Like, I think the one I hated the most, because I just want to say it out loud, because I think it needs to be said. There's two of them, actually.
Was it the
It's
pack?
I, Robot, You, Jane.
Oh no, I love that one.
No, that's
Well,
wrong.
it's Willow driven.
Incorrect,
It's Willow driven.
Stefan.
That's wrong.
Okay.
Shh.
Oh no.
And the second one is Teacher's. Actually, there's three: Teacher's Pet and the Pack. The Pack was just problematic at best.
Yeah, we're
Teacher's
gonna
Pet problematic as well, but like it was a bad episode. I, Robot,
Teacher's
You,
Pet I didn't
Jane
like.
was the lowest viewed episode of that season.
It was bad.
And
It was bad.
it's just so funny.
We're gonna go
Malachi.
through we're gonna go through each episode. I promise.
Yeah.
We're gonna go through each episode because I think they all deserve. I think we have enough
Yes.
time to sort of go through at least the 12. But it's interesting because when you compare, obviously, I teach high school, so the notion that everything's life and death, it is to them.
It is.
You don't remember what that felt like because not to every high school student, but to a lot of kids, they haven't experienced life and death in a real way. So to them, those heightened emotions and the heightened, puberty and hormones and all of that is life and death. So everything does feel to some extent that traumatic. That's why we're always making fun of high school students, right? Because they're always crying by the locker or losing their mind, telling them they hate their parents, they wish they were dead. That's the level high school kids live at. We just are so far removed from that, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so we're going to go through each episode. Before we go through each episode, I don't even want an explanation. Favorite character, Stefan, of the season. You pick one person.
Okay. My favorite character of this season is Darla.
Oh,
It's Stuart's. Thank you for that response. That's what I wanted, Stuart. The face you're making, but I'm not going to give a big explanation. Darla.
She was a great character.
She's a great character. Yes,
a brief description though for people who aren't Buffy fans. So, just give a brief.
Sure. In the very first scene of the very first episode of Buffy, a teenage girl in a little girls' school uniform is walking in with this kind of punk guy. Catholic schoolgirl uniform, excuse me, is walking the empty halls of the school. They broke into the school with this. She's like with this punk, and she's very nervous and scared. She's like, "Are we alone?" He's like, "Yeah, we're alone." She's like, "Good." And then she turns and she's a vampire, completely flipping that script in the very first moment of the show, and she attacks. And I love the fact that Darla is a character that moves into one of the best side characters of the show because she has these great flashbacks with Angel and Spike and Drusilla, and she's a phenomenal character in Angel. It was this. I won't talk much about it, but I love that it started with her. I love that character.
She's perfect, and you're right. It's the perfect moment where you're like, she's the damsel in distress. So not only is the hero going to be a chick. But the person that lured and that started all of it gets to be that same blonde, pretty little girl that you think is supposed to get saved, and all of a sudden,
she's the one.
Stu?
Yeah,
Xander,
he's like Catherine Pierce, the '90s.
Xander, Xander, your favorite, Stu?
Oh God,
it's got to be.
Who's your favorite?
Oof, Xander, I have sweats. I'm sweating right now of rage. I think the first season, my favorite character, I mean, it's gonna sound so ridiculous. I like Joyce.
Interesting.
Okay.
Because I'll tell you why. And like a one-liner. Joyce is Buffy's mother. So she is coming, they've moved here, she's a single mom. They've moved here from LA because Buffy burned down her gym. And she's having a restart, opening a gallery, and she's really trying to parent. And she's parenting a daughter who has supernatural abilities, who is against all odds, repeating the same behavior that they left for. And she is completely trying to hold it all together by herself. And I really appreciate that this season laid that foundation of mother and daughter time that you kind of develop on more in season 2. Love her.
Could I say and another reason I picked Darla is because I love Cordelia in this season. I love Willow in this season, but like they are, they have not. He does not care about those character developments in any way. Like they are not
Right.
there yet. You've
No,
got your mean girl and you've got your nerd, and Willow will inevitably be my all-time favorite character of all time. But
100%. Me too.
in this, she's just that
Yeah.
adorable, kind of quirky little young girl. And
Mousy.
Darla is a full-fledged villain with an attitude and a character and history, because she has history with not only the Master but Angel. So like there
Yeah.
was a lot about her. Losing her was interesting, but then having her back was amazing. So that's it.
I also find it interesting that Darla was the only blue vampire. Like she had the blueness of her face because she was the first
Oh, yeah.
iteration of the vampire
Oh, yeah,
makeup.
yeah. I want to talk a lot about the Master, but we'll get to there.
I do. He is kind of my favorite. Now, he's not just my favorite because it's the archetypal nature of who he is that
Mm-hmm.
makes him that I like his jokes. I like his
Mm-hmm.
wit. I feel
Something in
like
your
there's
eye.
so much set up with him
Mm-hmm.
where I'm lured into wanting to see him more and more on the screen. And you're right, they don't spend up besides Buffy. I mean, everybody could say we love Buffy, right? But
Mm-hmm.
besides Buffy, they don't put a lot of time into each character, but they do him.
Mm-hmm.
They make you want to figure out how he got stuck there. You want him out, like just for again, everybody knows he's sort of
I
trapped. He can't get
just
out.
I just wish there was like red pen, because I was watching the episode earlier today and I'm like, okay, he came out of that blood fully dry in pleather. Okay, let's modify that a little bit. How about we hand him
True,
clothes?
true.
No, okay, he's literally just completely dry.
There
Right.
was some there
I
was some lots of special effects maybe.
I
Yeah.
think I wish for the first season I would have preferred they tried to do it and I don't think they did a very good job at it. A consistent storyline throughout of the Master. You got bits and pieces every
Yeah,
single episode and they
maybe
kind of like
yeah,
worked into it, but nothing as much as they did in season 2 with Angel. And I would
totally.
have
No.
really preferred to either A, push the Angel storyline to season 3 and have the Master go from 1 all the way to the end of 2,
Yeah.
because it would
Yeah.
have given a lot more time and the stakes would have been a lot higher. But also, we could have gotten a lot more of the Master's backstory because it was told through other people. It was never
Right.
told through him. It was told through Giles and Darla and Angel. It was
Yeah.
never
And
told directly
flashbacks.
of his own story.
But I'm
But there's no
wondering,
flashbacks even of the Master. It was only
Not
of
even,
Darla and Angel.
but
yeah.
I'm
They.
wondering that we have to remember when it came out too. And because a lot of complaints, I have a lot of friends who I've made watch it, and they'll complain about that. They'll complain there's no arc, there's no storyline, there's no consistency. And what we need
Mm-mm.
to remember is in 1997, if you didn't catch this show on Tuesday at 8, you're not
You didn't.
seeing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True.
You don't have
True.
to go find it somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he was trying to figure out a way that if you just dropped in that episode, heaven help you if you dropped into the iRobot, but if you just dropped into that episode, right? You
Yeah.
could still get it. It still was funny. It was still whatever. And, if it wasn't as consistent, especially coming in mid-season,
Mm-hmm.
maybe you could still garner that kind of fan base, right? I really do think that's why they were standalone. Whereas nowadays, you don't have to worry about that because you'll always be able to find it, right?
Well, it's only diehard fans are going to know a real history of the Master, because he only has flashback scenes in Angel. Like in season 5 of Buffy, and I'm not going to go into it, but season 5 of Buffy, which would have been season 2 of Angel, they have that sort of back-to-back moment where you're hearing Spike's backstory and Angel's at the same time. And
Yeah.
you're only getting scenes with Darla and the Master from that point of view, and Angel and the Master from that point of view. And you don't get that, which kind of it's kind of an unfortunate situation. It's like, I want to know more about, like you said, I want to know more about this character. I understand it's kind of a drop-in sort of situation, but like, it would have been better if maybe instead of having some big bads within Buffy, we bring back the Master or bring back his acolytes or some sort of like if he
Yeah.
is the big bad and is represented in season 1 as the big bad, that prophecies have foretold him coming back to, and spreading his evil and taking over the world and everything going dark, then you think he would have had more of a staying power, and not just this 12-year-old boy they found on a bus. I hate that kid.
Right, but I think oh, that kid was I really have a problem with child actors who cannot act. But what I find most interesting about it is that the fact that the Master did not have was the oldest vampire of legend, and was the master of all vampires, but he is not old enough to have his hands and feet
Cloven.
hooven, like
Yeah.
cloven, like
Yeah.
Hephaestus. And it was like, it's such an interesting thing. And this is the one thing that I will say that kind of like I will span across Buffy and Angel, is that and I agree with what Joanna said, is the fact that I think what they were doing was trying to make it able for people to drop in and out and become fans and miss an episode. But I think by doing that, they lost a consistent story arc, and they used to drop things. Like storylines would just drop and you
Mhm.
wouldn't
Yeah,
come back to them.
Oh yeah.
And they create rules and then rewrite them.
yeah.
So it was not a consistent world. And I've said this before. I'm almost finished, Stefan. I said this
I'm
before,
waiting.
where
I'm waiting.
where where it's like, what I love about Vampire Diaries, and I wish Buffy had more of an adoption of that, is that it was a consistent built storyline season after season,
Yeah.
where it was
100%.
layered on top of each other.
Yeah.
And whereas Buffy, it was kind of like a new show every single year. It was like a different feel, different vibe, different
Because they
camera
had different
style, different
writers,
theme.
Mhm.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh
no, I
yeah.
agree.
Oh
I
yeah.
love Buffy. I think it's
but they were
amazing.
always getting kicked off networks left, right, and center.
Yeah.
I feel as
Right.
though we're always trying to figure out, oh shit, we're trying to
What do we do next?
reinvent ourselves because we
Yeah.
almost were canceled. So we got to do
Yes.
something different, you know?
And it
But
like
I
the
think for
characters.
like
Sorry,
but I think for the first
before we go back to the Master for a second, I just want to say about the Master, I think sometimes too, I don't know if I care about a bad guy's backstory.
oh, I love them all.
Like,
Mhm.
I just feel like
I wonder why they
a bad
tick.
vampire, it's like we always have to have the story about why something's bad, but when you look back like 70s and 80s horror movies, you don't get that goddamn story. Why?
No.
Because they're just bad. They're just
They're
bad
just
guys.
silent
They were born
stalkers.
that way. They're bad guys. We don't need any story about the gods fighting it out or about, what it just is what it is. So I kind of like that too, because there's no reason for vampires being on this planet. They just
Mhm.
are what they are. And I
Mhm.
liked that simplicity about them. And what I'm drawn to with him is his witty banter. Sorry, Stefan, you had your hand up.
I mean, if it's done properly, like when they tried to do Maleficent's backstory, it's like her name is literally like evil. Like she is Maleficent. It's you can't really give me like a happy, funny backstory where she's just been hurt. Someone like Regina from Once Upon a Time, I want to know why she ticks. And then when you do it right, you do it really right. So
Yeah.
like you understood the history and her heartache and her pain. It would be very fascinating to know more about the Master, where he came from. He's not the first vampire, so who sired him? Where did he come from? What era? Is this the 1300, 1500 BC? Where, if he is as old as he's supposed to be and he's legitimately prophesized in these ancient vampire books, then why doesn't he look more cloven and hooves and more bat like? I
Yeah.
want a Nosferatu. But I'm going to ask a gross question and you can say yay or nay. Did any of you find the Master sexy? Looking
Are you
back at him
okay?
now. Looking back at him
Who
now.
hurt you?
No, but like he
What's wrong
had
with
this.
you?
So
Was
think
it
about
the
it. So
fruit juice mouth?
in
Was
the
it fruit
it's
punch
fruit
mouth?
punch
The
mouth.
fruit punch mouth?
It's fruit punch mouth. So in Buffy the movie, you had this sort of like just older, sort of like Vlad the Impaler type in a business suit. He was nothing.
Yeah,
But then
yeah.
But you're right. The Master's personality is so like. There's something about like he's rough and he's kind of like seductive. Seductive? That's not the word.
Seductive?
Seductive and vindictive,
Vindictive?
and he's got those quips, and he's like, I'm like, all right, daddy.
Are you okay?
Stefan just invented a new word. I gotta pause on the new word because he merged seductive and vindictive. He said seductive. I think that word has some value just in everyday kind of life.
I'm a
Seductive.
little slow.
I like it.
But yeah, I just
I like it. Okay, so let's go through a little bit of each episode.
Sure.
You guys ready?
Yep.
Yes.
So we go, welcome to the Hellmouth. You get this overarching introduction, favorite moment. And this is where Buffy's like shifted to a new school and all of a sudden she has to be a vampire slayer again and she wants to quit. She's out. Favorite moment, and she's sort of piecing together all the favorite moment from episode 1. Welcome to the Hellmouth.
Stuart, you want to go first?
I do want to go first. I have lots to say about this episode.
Okay. Because we might have the same favorite moment. We might.
Maybe. Maybe we do.
What's happening?
So
what is this?
I absolutely loved what I loved about it was the fact that it did a really, really good job. And I will say a lot about Joss Whedon's character setups. They're all great.
Yeah.
You meet them organically. They all are like, you give enough information that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's not like in the shows these days where like someone's sitting having a breakfast and they're like, remember that time mom died in a car accident 14 years ago? Pass the milk. And you're like, who would say this?
Thank you, Vampire Diaries. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Jenna. And I also like the fact that it was although like you didn't see Xander and Willow's or Cordelia's parents, Buffy's mom drops her off at school. There is a home that is created and a relationship there and a backstory that you are hinted at. I love that. That was really great because it draws you in and wants you to know more about this character. The fact that you get bits and pieces of her backstory while going over it with Principal Henry, love it as well.
But what's your favorite moment?
Henry's from Scream. Principal Feeney. Wait, what is his name?
Principal Figgins? Figgins? No.
Henry Winkler? No. Flutie.
What'd they say? Flutie. My students can call me Bob, but they don't.
Yeah, exactly.
Dude gets eaten. Have some respect.
I know. God. Yeah. Xander being
Henry Winkler.
Anyway. So I really enjoyed that. And I think you get introduced to the kind of the lore of the show with the vampires. Stefan's right, Darla opens the show. And you kind of had this kind of world below a world. And I really, really liked that. My favorite scene, I'm pretty sure it was this scene between Willow and her when they're sitting in the bronze. And he's like gives this like sage advice at 16 years old, like carpe diem. And then she's like, yeah. And she's like, live for today because tomorrow you could be dead. And then she's like, tomorrow I could be dead. That's nice. I also love that Willow was wearing literally. And I think I really appreciated that because it's such a high school thing to say. And at the time you'd be like, my best friend's a genius. Like she's such a sage, like world traveler. Like go home and tell your parents and your parents roll your eyes and you're like, you don't understand me. So I'm a vampire slayer.
You could be dead. Yeah.
Exactly. I enjoyed that.
Stefan, favorite moment.
It's a combination of when Buffy meets Giles in the library and they're talking. She's like, "What did you go for the calendar?" He's like, "Oh, book." Yeah. And
I got
she's
free phone.
Yeah. Oh, neat. I love the fact that there's just like this pause of their like very dramatic conversation to me. Like, wait, you got the phone? Obviously, seize the moment because tomorrow you could be dead. And then I think because I said this forever. It's when Buffy is looking for the DeBarge vampire through the bronze, and she grabs Cordelia and Cordelia says, "What is your childhood trauma?" That is one of my favorite lines. And she's like, "My bad." And she's like, "Excuse me, I have to call everyone I've ever met." That is definitely my favorite line and my favorite moment.
That's a great moment.
Perfectly. And I think you guys described what I think is the best, which is the wit.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good.
There is no show I have never seen a show ever before or after that is written so carefully and meticulously, and every character has their own wit and charm that makes you laugh and keeps it on point. And through all of the horrible things that they're going to go through, like she's about to fight with Darla and she's like, now this is not going to be pretty. We're talking violence, strong language, adult content. That is hilarious. And they were doing it way before Scream was doing their, very aware of their circumstance. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
way before everybody else was doing it. Mm-hmm. And it's that wit and awareness, self-aware, like not even self-awareness, but that wit that I think is the reason the show was able to get a firm following. Because that wit was consistent. Storyline might not have been.
Oh, but the Whedonverse. The Whedonverse had its own language, like its own language. You know, I think literally the word big bad that is now used
big
for almost all terminology for a villain is made from Buffy, like easily. Yeah, because just the way Xander and Buffy and Willow spoke to one another, it just had such a staying power that became like a generation's vocabulary. Like our vernacular is absolutely based on Buffy, 100%.
Well, it's interesting because you can spot them too. Like you can spot an episode where, just say, David Greenwald wrote it, or like
Mm-hmm.
Joss Whedon wrote it, or I can't remember her name now because I can't stand her.
Oh,
But
Eileen.
Jane
Marty Noxon.
Marty Noxon. Yeah, you never liked her.
Jane Espenson. Sorry?
I
Jane
liked her.
Espenson, yeah.
Yeah.
I like Jane Espenson. No, Marty Noxon, who came in later on. I didn't care for her. I thought her episodes were a little bit too much.
Interesting. I don't even know if I would go through. I don't even know if I could decipher. What I do appreciate is no matter who the writer was, they held true to the character.
Yes.
I never saw anybody sacrifice the character or how that's been developed for the message they wanted to get across. You know what I mean? So I got to kind of respect that a little bit.
And I have to say, I love Jane. I can't remember her last name. Sorry, Espeston. How do you say? Yeah, I love Jane because she wrote on Once Upon a Time, and she had the best moments of like, "You found me," and it's so similar to like the way that Prince Charming and Snow White spoke to one another is the way that Willow spoke to Tara, or the way that Angel spoke to Buffy. So well done. Like half the reason I love that show is because I followed like that writing.
100%. All right, so we jump into the harvest.
Yeah. Do you want me to do like a quick summary of the harvest?
What? You give a quick summary.
Okay, so Jesse and Willow and Xander are being chased by vampires in the graveyard. They are able to get away. Jesse does not get away, but Willow and Xander do. They decide to make a plan because Giles realizes that the harvest is something to do with the Master, and so they go to. I'm trying to remember this vividly. They end up gearing up, heading to the Bronze, where these sacrifices are going to be made by Luke and the Master's right hand man. And the more that Luke absorbs, the more blood he takes in because he's linked to the Master. The weaker the bonds that keep the Master in the barrier. Yes. The weaker the barrier becomes, then he can walk free. Buffy tricks him, takes him out. The Master's stuck where he is. We also lose Jesse in the process. And and then we solidify the trio with Giles at the end, and the Earth is doomed.
Well, there we go. The Earth is doomed. That's it. Like the Earth is doomed is my favorite line, not because it's, obviously apocalyptic for the rest of it, but this idea of an adult looking at these kids. Think about this like in the grand scheme of the world, right? Because every friggin' generation does it. They look at the kids and the kids hold the future in their hands. And this adult who thinks he knows so much better is standing there going, "Oh, we're screwed. We're absolutely screwed." But not to ruin the end of the story. They're not. You know what I mean? It's because of the way they think and because of the way they interact that they, Go ahead, Stu.
They bring that line back in season 7.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. Definitely.
Oh, Stuart, we can't hear you.
He's been
muted. I was going to say it was reflected in season 7. But I also love the fact. No, I know. You just like cut in there. Yep. We're raising our hands, Stefan. Anyway, no, I also really like too is the fact that they're so resilient in the first season. Like these huge, like massive things that have happened, they're able to bounce back and just like go back to science class or like talk about boys. And I think it's really interesting that you kind of like see that later on, that resilience and that kind of like teenage insouciance. It's a horrible word.
Bounce back that teenagers do.
Bounce back. Insouciance. Is this a word, right?
Is that a word?
Insouciance.
Is it? I don't know.
I think it's insouciance. Anyway.
I don't know.
Oh, is Julia there?
And Julia's here.
Hi, Julia. Also a Buffy fan.
Come around the other side of the camera.
Oh, I'm good.
But I think that you kind of see that wear away, and I really like. It's insouciant. Insouciant.
I don't know how to say it. I just say it.
Never heard of it a day in my life.
Never heard of it. Not once.
Listen, guys. One time when I was a writer, I was told that I sound like an asshole, and that was one of the words I used. My editor took me aside, and she was like, "Hey, Everyone
You
knows
sound
that
like
you're smart, and everyone knows that you can read big words. But when you say them out loud, you sound like an asshole, and no one wants to hang out with you. So stop it. And I was like, okay, cool.
And I make up words. I put them together.
there we go.
Apparently making up words is a lot nicer.
I make up words all the time.
I got it.
Oh, good Lord.
I got it.
Formulant thing to do.
Well, I think.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, if we're going to talk, my favorite scene from this entire episode is when Buffy says, "You forgot one thing, sunrise." They just did that in Hocus Pocus, which I thought was hilarious. And she's like, "It's about 4 hours, dumbass."
Yeah. That was a great.
I like that.
It's that wit, right? It's just laden through the whole thing. And I know we're not going to have time to go through every single. I know you guys, we can pick and choose episodes to go through. But what the cool thing is about the first season, it's always a metaphor about high school, and it sucks. But what they do very specifically in season 1, they take out making the cheerleading. Or no, cheerleader season 2, isn't it?
No, cheerleader season 1.
She's season 1, episode
Witch.
of the Witch, episode 3. Yeah.
Which is my favorite episode.
Right? Making the cheerleader team, number 1. Like, what is that? And wanting your parents wanting you to relive their youth. Super prominent, right? They talk about fitting in. That's what the pack is all about. How do you fit in? What do you have to give up in order to fit in with the cool kids? What are you willing to give up? How much of an ass are you willing to be? Basically, right? And like all of these different things, I have no idea what the puppet show was talking about, but the out of sight, out of mind. The out of sight, out of mind when you're so ignored. You have nothing, that you literally you feel as though, and you fade into nothingness.
Sorry,
those are cool themes.
Oh, 100%. Is that that's season 1? That's 11. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think so. Out of sight, out of mind, right?
Right. I get that.
Marcy.
I get season 1 and season 2 mixed up sometimes. They just kind of like mold together.
Well, they
But like, what happened to that storyline? What happened to that storyline? Sorry, go ahead.
It's gone.
Well, where she went. She worked for the government. Sorry,
yeah, she went to work for the government. But if you tell them apart, is that season 1 is in a blue hue. Everything is in a blue hue. And season 2 is very warm. Everything is warm. Everything is like very deep and rich. And
Buffy has better hair.
Yeah.
Buffy has great hair in season 2.
Everyone has better hair. The one thing I will say.
Buffy with the good hair.
Buffy with the good hair. When she came back and she had the bob, her like bitch bob. I wanted a bitch bob.
Yeah.
That's a powerful bitch bob. I'm like, oh yeah, that's a Slayer. She's gonna take me out. That bitch bob.
Yeah, it's a BB. I had hair like that too. It wasn't.
I believe it. I believe that page boy haircut absolutely lived on your head.
It did. It lived on my head.
Some berries and cream.
I did a lot of this with my whole arm to move it over. I thought it was really cool. It was amazing. I did that too. Yeah, that was later on. Later on. Yeah.
You know what else I found interesting, and then I want you guys to bring episodes. I want you to talk about your one favorite episode. Hopefully, it's not the ones we've talked about.
Doesn't exist. There's too many.
In the Nightmares episode, which I don't know if I don't think that's anyone's favorite. There's a quote from Giles as I was going through in the episode, and this is the quote though that I've never really thought about before. But as we know, what happens later, he says, "Dreams, that would be a musical comedy version of this. Nightmares are coming true." How funny is it that he references a musical comedy and how good that would be, how much better that would be than facing our nightmares. Yep. And then 5 seasons later, all of a sudden and he always wanted to do, Josh Wheaton says he always wanted to do a musical. That was a game plan of his.
But just to add on to what you said, in Restless, end of season 4, Giles sings in their nightmares. So it actually,
was it their nightmares? No, it was it was in season. No, wait.
The original Slayer is following. Yeah.
He sang earlier on that season when they went to find him, and he's having a guy's night out, and they found him at the coffee shop, and Willow was like, "Is anyone?" Xander was like, "Is anyone else really attracted to Giles right now?" And everyone was like,
And Xander's like, "Please, I am holding on by a thread." Yeah, that wasn't
Xander should have held on by a thread and fallen off.
That was the one where they were stuck in the frat house, and they were just having sex the whole time.
Listen,
Yeah.
Look,
Yeah.
there's
Good episode.
single episodes in other seasons, because what they didn't do in this season, which I'm still upset about, because my favorite episodes of every season are always the Halloween episode.
So
I
fun.
love the Halloween episodes, and they didn't do one. This is the only season they had a short amount. They didn't do a Halloween episode, which is upsetting.
Well, and I think the only
Yeah.
reason they didn't is because season 2 started in September.
Half season, yeah.
Which is, again, I think one of my absolute favorite Halloween episodes probably would have been season 4 because it was so funny, and then season 2 because of the princess and
Season
the
4,
army.
Fear.
Yeah,
Yes,
Fear itself.
yeah. It's like,
Don't taunt.
actual.
I
So we're not going
had
to talk about it yet. Not.
We'll
I
talk
thought
about
you
that.
said season 4 was good, and I was like, stop it. Sit
Dude,
down.
favorite episode from this season and why?
It's Witch. It's
Witch.
Witch. How can it not be Witch? You get introduced to Amy. You have her mother. You have the whole like mother-daughter dynamic. So it's a complete like dark side parallel to Buffy and her mother.
Mhm.
You have Willow's and like the whole beginning of like witches and magic.
Yeah.
It was just a really fun episode, and I actually it was the first episode I ever saw of Buffy because I tuned in at that episode, and
See?
I thought I was the smartest person in the whole world because my sister and I were watching it. I was 11 years old, and I was like, "Oh, it's Fear Street, the cheerleader series, and this is a whole movie. This is a whole series. I know what this is."
I
And
love
then it
Fear
was
Street.
Buffy. I loved it too. It was the greatest thing, the cheerleader series.
Mhm.
So I watched that one. I think it was a great one. It was a great episode. It also it was fun. It was good. It was
Fun and
Someone with such big words is such an asshole with fun and good. Or was it?
I'm getting red to filth from behind the camera as she has her hand like just
I mean, and in front of the camera because I'm. Oof.
Okay.
I
What I
like
liked
Buffy.
about
It was nice.
there were so many different themes. You got Giles's kind of like backstory, a little bit of hinting at that. You had Willow's entrance to magic, standing up for herself. You had someone punch Xander, thank God. And then you had Buffy be the one that was taken out. She didn't save the day per se. It was Giles.
Mhm.
It was Giles and Amy.
Yeah.
And also like that actress who played her mother, I can't remember her name right now, but she was absolutely fantastic.
Well,
Well,
and
you
it's
see her
nice
in every
Amy
episode.
stays. Amy
No, no.
is going to stay in a form and then come back later, and she comes
Yeah.
back at a great time in a great role because
Oh God, season 7, Amy.
the damage is done, right? The damage is done to that kid. What that mom did, even though she was being saved for it. The interesting part is, and I don't know how deep they get, but that kind of, and I'm going to use a big word like abuse, but like that kind of parental control and manipulation, you don't survive that without some serious therapy. And when you see Amy again, it's an expression of all of it because none of it's been dealt with, and now she is who she is because of that. So I find that fascinating too. Stefan, what's your favorite?
It has to be Prophecy Girl. I liked I Robot You Jane, but only because I thought it was so lame. I thought it was so ridiculous. I thought the terminology being used about like meeting a guy online, I'm like, it's looking back on it, you're like, this is hilarious. This is insane.
Yeah.
But Prophecy Girl probably has to be my favorite because it actually gave real stakes to a season. Like Willow shows up. Willow was all excited to get ready for like the big dance, and she was part of the committee, and so was Cordelia. And Cordelia was seeing a guy, and you're seeing like this high school experience happening, and then all of a sudden that entire room is attacked by vampires, and it's like, oh, it's in our school now. It's not just out there. Willow says specifically to Buffy, like they were in our school, they were in our space, they came, they were here.
That was a powerful scene.
It was an absolutely powerful scene. It also solidified how amazing Allison Hannigan is an actor. And when Buffy, when Angel and Giles are having a conversation about the prophecy for Buffy, and she kind of laughs it off. She's like, well, then I quit. That's it. That's the end of the story. And like the moment of her saying, I'm 16 years old. I don't want to die. I'm like, Jesus, it was powerful.
Yeah.
That whole episode was amazing. You had the entire season, all 12 episodes kind of come together in that 1 hour episode. You finally got the showdown with the Master. You finally got some big stakes with Xander. You saw this stuff happening around them. You saw the Hellmouth attacking him with tentacles and like there were actual effects. Like and I love when she looks at him and she's like, "You've got fruit punch mouth." He's like, "What?" So good.
Yeah.
So good.
It's my favorite. I have a sweater that says that. I think
love
what
it.
also is interesting, and again, applying it to sort of a bigger picture, is this notion that kids that are 15, 16 years old, they're treated like kids, yet in other ways they have the weight of the world on their shoulders. They have very adult responsibilities. Everybody's like, you're supposed to be an adult. You take responsibility, take responsibility, take responsibility. We're going to treat you like children.
Yeah.
And it's that dichotomy of being a teenager that is so confusing and so problematic and so overwhelming that's why it erupts consistently. Now we see it erupt in very specific ways, but it erupts consistently in these kind of dichotomies between I'm just a kid, I don't want to do it, to I have to save the world today.
Yeah.
And
it's my responsibility.
It's that connection that I find the most interesting about Buffy is the fact that it's constantly like they're just kids, they're just kids, they're just kids. But holy crap, look at what they do.
Yeah.
And I think it's true, in a lot of ways. Kids do amazing things. We constantly underestimate that.
Oh yeah.
But I think it also means that like when there is a loss or when they lose something, the stakes are so much higher. So like you feel a lot more because they're so young, and you forget that throughout the show, especially in the episode that Stefan is saying, because it's the first time they lost. Like it's the first time that it hit so close to home and kind of permeated that safety of a school, which is hilarious considering like the states. I don't think schools are safe at all. But I think it's incredibly a great dichotomy to have. But I think it's so amazing to see that it's something Buffy can't fix. Like she can't take that back. She can maybe fight the evil that perpetrated that kind of violence on these people and then murdering of those kids, but you can't take it back. Willow's always going to be traumatized by that. It's not going to be something that Buffy can fix. And I think we see that more and more throughout this season is that Buffy can kill the monster, but she can't fix the loss and the hurt and the heartache and the pain.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely.
Buffy, and again, if I'm ruining it, guys, I'm for the love of God, 1997, that's when it came out, folks. So you're going to have some spoilers. Buffy dies. Buffy dies. She doesn't make it. The only reason.
Also, Stefan. Spoiler alert, Joanna.
1997. The only reason she makes it is because of an average person that's willing to stand by and fight with her.
Yeah.
No matter, lost his best friend, but he wasn't supposed to go down there. At that point, you already know Angel is a superhero too. You don't have to go down there. But guess what? He goes anyway. And it goes back to issues. I know your favorite's not Xander, hun, but Xander's character is there to say, I have nothing. I have no superpower. I'm not special in any way, shape, or form, but I go anyway.
I fight the fight.
And that's freaking powerful.
I think it is. Listen. I want to just like give him props here. I completely agree with you, Joe. Like I completely agree that Xander played that human element of like I have no powers, I have no super strength, I don't heal resiliently. I'm going because I need to protect, I need to do something. You see that in the first episode and you see that in the last episode, and you see it peppered in consistently through all the seasons, and it kind of makes up his character. He is the everyman. The problem with Xander is the fact that from the beginning, they ruined him because he was often the kind of like the tool for the monsters to attack or to be possessed or do all of these different things. And he was played as this kind of like comedic foil. But a lot of what he was doing, like in the pack in this season, like he tries to rape Buffy and like remembers it. And but there's no apology there. But there's
I need to rewatch this episode.
That's the thing that I think we have to focus on with that I have such a problem with Xander.
I have to watch it again because I didn't get rapey vibes.
I didn't get rapey vibes either. And I'll tell you this. He was possessed by a demon. He remembered what he did. It doesn't mean that Xander did it. Now, I
But
do
it
think that his
also
motivations were romantic,
no,
which
I don't agree with you because Xander does remember it and it builds on his character
Yes.
throughout the
Yeah.
seasons.
He does
He
remember.
continues to perpetrate this ridiculousness where he's talking about watching her change, seeing her naked, sleeping with her, um, uh, saying a lot of really like gross things to her that kind of live in this toxic masculinity and abusive sort of rhetoric. And every time that he is possessed, he does violence to somebody that he loves and with no
Maybe.
apology.
Do you think maybe, and I have no idea, look, he could have been friggin' Josh Wheaton incarnate. I have no idea. But do you think maybe he is the damsel in distress? He is the
Always.
toxic
yeah.
masculinity? But in that case, then, he is the part of society that still wants to be good but desperately needs to be fixed? Maybe?
Maybe.
I, you
Right?
know,
Maybe?
Stuart, I usually agree with you on a lot of things. I think that this aggressiveness towards Xander, I don't agree with you at all. I don't see I he's only ever been possessed in the show twice. It was once when he was a GI Joe, and it wasn't possession; it was him taking the manifestation of that character. And the only other time he was possessed was was in the Pact. Pull away a little bit, and I don't. Those people that attacked, like he'll remember, like 100%. He will remember attacking the principal. He will remember attacking people, but it doesn't mean that
He ate that guy.
he ate that dude. Like, but that doesn't mean that he is a cannibal at heart. It doesn't mean he wanted to eat him. He was possessed by a hyena demon. I don't get assault. Like, I don't get rape. I hate that word. I don't get rapey vibes from him when it came to him and Buffy in that moment. I do think that his motivations in the first few seasons are absolutely fueled by his hormones. Like, yes, he is Buffy's friend and will become her brother over time, but in the first few seasons, he wants to sleep with her. He wants to date her. I
Right.
I I don't see him though. So yes, his motivations are romantic or hormonal,
But
but
it's not romantic.
I don't think it's
He
he's not.
says, Stuart, he says no. I don't want to jump ahead because we're going to do a whole season. But remember, he says no when Buffy's in that outfit.
Because she's possessed. She's under a spell. And he says
He
no to
says, no,
that.
thank you.
It's not real.
Not this
Right.
way. I
But
don't
I'm
want
Yeah.
it this way.
but one good thing he does not erase
Listen,
every other
That's
bad thing
not
he
one
does.
good thing. Now if we say that he ends up, and I'm not going to say spoiler alerts for the comics or anything, but he may end up with another character that is technically her blood, it is fine. But I
what?
don't,
He ends up with Dawn?
he ends up with so in the comic spoiler, he ends up with Dawn for at least a couple seasons, and then
I'm not okay with that. That's fair.
when the do you want me to spoil it? Do you want me to tell you what
Yeah, I
happens?
don't
You might as well. You're doing
No,
it already.
Okay, so he becomes the new Giles. I'm sorry. I shouldn't tell you this stuff. I'll tell you offline. I'll tell you offline. It's not he's the new Giles. He becomes like their
We're not talking about the series right now. We're talking about a comic book that was written after the series finale, which is the best series finale I've ever seen in my entire life.
100%.
And
I still think about it.
There are seasons of comic books that happen after that.
It's the characters. We'll talk about it offline because it's interesting. I really like what they did with his character. It's a lot of fun. But Willow's obviously is the best.
I think Xander's character is supposed to be a little more reminiscent, unfortunately or fortunately, of the male culture of the day. And I think you don't like it because it's not good, but it's still very much supported and very much okay. And whatever vibes you're getting, they weren't just encouraged. They were like, boys will be boys. It's a girl's job to say no. I mean,
hate that.
all of that was fundamentally true in culture of the time. So whatever vibe you're getting, I don't think it's a wrong vibe. I just think that maybe he is representing a hell of a lot of that. And he does change to some degree, as much as you can, right? Yes.
Mhm.
Right. But like, okay. So like I went back and like looked at the synopsis for the pack, and it does say that he tried to rape her in the actual line.
I'm
Number
gonna watch
one,
that
I
episode.
need to watch this episode again.
you really guys, you do. You have to watch it because it's not great. And the fact that it's the what he says to her, so you know it's what he's trying to do is problematic. One, he also lies to Buffy that causes her to kill Angel, which could have been avoided completely if he told the truth. He strings Willow along the whole time, and he kind of keeps her as a maybe before she kind of comes out. He's extremely problematic to Anya, and then bails on her at the altar. Like
But
he
that's
also
because he's broken, though. He's a
That-
but he also dates and cheats on Cordelia, and then keeps her as a secret. He is
That's
so judgmental to Buffy and everyone that she dates all the time. Like
true.
it doesn't get
Well,
any
he
better.
does- I think he might
There's
want to
no
date Riley.
progression there.
I think he wants to date Riley, so I'm not too sure there.
Oh my god!
Riley?
Can I just say
Love
one thing
Riley.
about Riley? Can I just say one thing about Riley?
We can't
It
get to
still
him.
upsets me.
Okay.
At
So
a fundamental, I just want to say one thing about Riley before we go on. It bothers me at a fundamental core level the fact that Buffy Summers ran across Sunnydale to stop and beg Riley to stay. That piece of oatmeal toast and begged him, and then she fell into some deep dark depression over Riley. That wall behind me has a lot more personality than Riley does. I'd rather make out with it.
It's true. And listen,
okay, I'm gonna read the scene. I'm gonna read the scene. Okay, and it's a lot.
Is this from the pack?
This is the
Wait,
pact.
the pact? Okay.
So cut to Buffy and Xander. He's still on top of her. Fine. Do you know how long I've waited until you've stopped pretending that we aren't attracted? Buffy throws him off of her and quickly gets up to face him. He gets up too and begins to approach her as she backs away. Until Willow stops kidding herself that I could settle with anyone but you. Buffy says, look, Xander, I don't want to hurt you. He grabs her by the shoulder and pushes her against the vending
That's
machine.
a cliffhanger.
Xander, now do you want to hurt me? Buffy struggles with the possessed Xander, but the possessed Xander is too strong. Xander, come on, Slayer. I like it when you're scared. She struggles a bit more.
I think he's still
Xander,
talking,
the more I
though,
scare
but
you,
we
and he
just can't
sniffs
hear
her,
him.
the better you smell. He moves in and kisses her roughly on the neck.
Is that what's
Cut
happening?
to
Do you think he'll see
Buffy
the
dragging
chat?
Xander into the library and goes over. Buffy, hurry up. We've got to get him locked up before he comes to. Oh my God, Xander, what happened?
Right.
Buffy says, I
Tell
hit
Julia
him.
to stop moving.
What? Buffy says, a desk.
Tell Julie to stop moving. What's going
So-
on?
Oh, he's fine.
That's a lot.
Julia, stop moving.
Oh no.
All right. Stop moving. There, he's coming back in. Yay!
Did you not?
All right.
What happened?
We didn't hear any of that. We heard he threw him off.
Can you not hear me?
We didn't hear you before. So
Hello?
we heard you. Oh, can't hear you now? Oh, that's funny.
Oh, you can hear me.
Stefan? I can hear
We can
you.
hear
I can't see anyone. So
Oh. Anything?
crap.
As
Okay,
we're
so
having
you can hear me, but I can't see you and or hear you. Well, that's fun. Okay.
We're going to have
Oh,
him
you can
tell the story.
Tell the story. So should I
Yeah.
start from the beginning?
This is going to
Okay.
be like
I'll say it all over again. Cut to Buffy and Xander. He's still on top of her. Xander, do you know how long I've waited until you've stopped pretending that we aren't attracted? Buffy throws him off of her and quickly gets up to face him. He gets up too and begins to approach her as she backs away. Xander, until Willow stops kidding herself that I could settle with anyone but you. Buffy says, look, Xander, I don't want to hurt you. He grabs her by the shoulder and pushes her against the vending machine. Xander, now do you want to hurt me? Buffy struggles, but the possessed Xander is too strong. Xander, come on, Slayer. I like it when you're scared. She struggles a bit more. Xander, the more I scare you, sniffs her, the better you smell. He moves in and kisses her roughly on the neck. Cut to Buffy dragging Xander into the library and Willow goes over to them. Buffy says, hurry up. We've got to get him locked up somehow before he comes to. Willow, oh my God, Xander, what happened? Buffy, I hit him. Willow, with what? Buffy, a desk. So that's how that scene plays out.
Okay, so Stu, you can still hear me, right?
Yep, I can hear you and see you.
Okay, so I think we need to we'll end off this because I think that
well, wait.
the description is pretty much. I haven't watched it in a long time, so it is a lot more aggressive. But I think
It says it's a recording, but yeah,
it's the whole point of the character, right?
Right. But I think the
what
character.
fun. Okay. I can't hear you
think-
guys. I'm sorry.
Yeah, come back in.
You think the character?
I think the character in itself, I think could have been really good, but it is, I think Xander, because he is built on this very problematic foundation,
Yeah.
I don't think they give a lot to redeem him. And I think that is where you fall into this weird thing where you like the fact that in season 1 he said that during the pact of Willow stops kidding herself, yet he continues to string her along into season 2 and 3, and then again in season 4. And I think you gonna get on this like weird, you get this weird thing with Xander where there is not a lot of character progression there. Like there's not like leaps and bounds like you see with Willow or Buffy or Giles or any of the other characters. So he sort of becomes this regressive character that feels very much like he's in high school at all times.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah.
And I feel bad because I think that character could have been really great. But unfortunately, he really is the archetype where you see that character in many other shows that are supernatural, and they oftentimes become the same thing. But, or you get that same character, or you get a character who's very angry that he's the only human.
Yeah.
I agree
right.
with you, Stefan. He is Joss Whedon, which makes it worse in hindsight.
He is Joss. Yeah, I agree with that as well. All right. So on that note, and we're suffering some technical difficulties here, but I know that we need to wrap up. We're going to wrap up season 1. Final statement about season 1, Stu?
Final statement about season 1 is the fact that I think you need to watch it. I think it's a really good, fun season. I think there's a lot of standalone episodes that are kind of cringy, but I think ultimately it's a good payoff at the end. I think you do get that what's happened next, and I do think it creates a very solid foundation that you can build off of into season 2. Season 2 is incredible, and I can't wait to come back to sing with that one.
Yeah. Season 1, my final. I'll see here. Well, let's see what stuff. Oh, you can hear us. Oh, well, it's a brave new world. I like it. Go ahead. What's your final impersonation or interpretation or perception of season 1?
Mm.
Yeah. The other ones are fun. Yeah, the other ones are fun though. We did. I like it. I'm a Thanks Puppet Show. You know what we funnily enough, and the way I want to wrap it up is we didn't even talk about Angel, which I find interesting. Um, the key about Angel, who just for everybody's background, so they know, the key about Angel is he's a vampire, but he's a vampire with a soul, and you find out why that is, and the reason why I like that character and I like that setup so much is because what it sets up is this idea that good guys and bad guys aren't always wearing the right outfits, right? There's not always this clear line between who's good and who's bad. Good people do horrible things. We just spent a episode talking about it with Xander, right? Bad people, or however you frame that sort of villain of the show, they can do good things as well. And I think setting him up like that is probably the single most brilliant thing that allows and that setup. A vampire with a soul is truly the only setup for Vampire Diaries, for Twilight, for what? Why are there all of a sudden all good vampires? So all of a sudden all of them are good. They're all nice guys when they fall in love with the right girl. That's set up from this. But Angel is he's been cursed, so he's still a vampire, but he has a conscience. And I think the brilliance of that is truly, even though I don't love Angel for the duration, the brilliance of that character is the setup for everything else.
I do agree with you there.
You know? Mhm. In this cool mid ground. I just feel like, and then we get to meet demons that we don't hate. And then all the subtleties about
Clem!
Clem's amazing. And all the subtleties about when we start, because I teach this in a lot of my courses, all the subtleties about racism and discrimination and stereotype and all that stuff. That seems ridiculous when you're talking about a vampire, but it doesn't matter. You boil it down to what you see isn't always what you get and what you should get. And that's insanely powerful to teach through a very campy, supernaturally based show, but they do it, and they do it extremely well through the whole thing. So much. I think season 2 is going to need 2 hours.
I'm so excited.
Season 2. All right, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out. Stefan, where can we find you? Amazing. I'm going to put all that details in the description below. Stu, what about you?
You can find me on TikTok and Instagram at Janikon, JANIKON_, and as a weekly contributor to the RWACP, Rebel Without a Closet podcast. And you can find them in all the links as Stefan just said.
Amazing. Thank you guys so much for tackling season 1 of Buffy. We will be back next week, same bat time, same bat channel, with season 2 of Buffy. I think maybe the best season of all 7.
I would agree with you.
It's a little bit of a spoiler, but it's amazing. We're going to need a longer time to do it. Thank you guys so much. We will see you next Tuesday. Dismissed.